Hello, back in the kitchen for a tag video because every once in a while I just get kind of little whims to do tags, and this one was created by the super nosy Steve Donahue, and it's the 20 random questions tag, which he just wants to hear people's questions because he's very, very nosy, and well, it's fun to answer questions. Steve's interested in us. He really is. Question number one: what's the nearest place to you that's so famous everybody knows it, and how near is it? That's a kind of interesting question because I find that as a local, you're always surprised. Like Bouchard Gardens, which is a couple of kilometers away from me, is very famous as famous, beautiful gardens. But it's one of those things like, oh, really? But then again, I'm not a gardening person. I guess there's the Empress Hotel, which is like a kilometer that way. My directions are terrible, but where you can have very expensive high tea. Um, Probably actually, but I live on Vancouver Island, and you should really come if you're going to come here. You should come here for the actual stuff that's unique to, well, not unique, but is special to Vancouver Island. I would say probably Long Beach, where Tofino, kind of amazing beaches where people surf, but also is just glorious place to walk along those beaches. That's like about 4.5 hours from here. I used to live a lot closer. It's mid island and kind of across. Um, as you're driving across there, you could stop at Cathedral Grove, which I hope is one of those famous places where there are Douglas firs, which are like 600 to 800 years old. Yeah, that's obvious. That's another one of those areas I'll just love walking through. There's a lot of places where I just love walking, which are just yeah, quite amazing. Stuff like that. Number two, have you ever had a paper cut so bad you thought you might die of it? No. Number three, have you found anything genuinely valuable in a used book that you bought? No. Number four, have you ever read, met, or married Jacques Barzun? No. Number five, aside from your pets, what is the specific non-human animal that you see most often? Probably the crows that like to taunt and play with my little doodle. Then there's hummingbirds, birds in general, deer, the raccoons that have a tendency to use our back fence as a highway at night. That's when I come home and I'm sitting on the bench there in the middle, in the darkness, and you see the lope, 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 lope going along there. Have you ever been inside a cathedral? If more than one, do you have a favorite? I've been in many cathedrals. Last year, it is still last year, I was in Italy, and there was the Orvieto Cathedral and the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, the Florence Cathedral, the Duomo there would be favorites. I guess other ones, St. Paul's in London I've been to, Notre Dame Cathedral pre-fire in Paris would be ones. Yeah, yeah, I've done a lot of cathedrals for someone who's, uh, I mean, really, that's where the money was at that point, so that's where the art is, so you go to those places. Have you ever been actually seeing and hearing things delirious? I think the closest thing I had to that is I had probably severe dehydration. I was on a school hiking camping trip up in Banff National Park, Lake Louise area, and I was trekking along and sweating, carrying my pack, and then things got very fuzzy, and like it was very. It was more. It wasn't so much delirious as it was just everything turned into soft pillows, and then I woke up in a cabin with people talking, chatting around me. It was probably my. I'm not into the recreational stuff, so and I haven't had much in the way of illnesses, so that would be my one brush with an altered state just through not drinking my goddamn water. Um, do you have relatives who read for pleasure? Yeah, both my mother and father were very big readers. I'm not quite sure how my siblings are on reading. Number nine, how many species have you smooched smack dab on the lips? That would be human beings. That would be dogs. Maybe the odd brush from a cat, even though I'm allergic to cats. Um, do you ever listen to the radio? Any favorite program or person? Radio, Steve. You're a strapping 28-year-old. What is this strange ancient device you call the radio? Yes, I did back in the day before there were the magic invention of podcasts. I listened to the radio. Mostly listen to CBC radio. Peter Zlosky fan. And we won't speak of what came after that. Um, Also, when I was a teenager, I would stay up late at night, and there would be rebroadcasts of like old 30s and 20s, not 20s, 30s and 40s, kind of, and maybe 50s radio, which was the TV of its time. So you'd get, pulp fiction stuff, you'd get comedy shows, you'd get hard-boiled detectives. I listened to a lot of that as I was growing up as a teen, and that always kind of that probably warped and was a part of my imagination, as much as reading science fiction and fantasy was. Listening to those old radio shows and the radio, the soundscape of the mind and everything like that. Um, have you ever been to the Eiffel Tower, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, or the Louvre? I've been to the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower. Have never been to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Have been in the Louvre for days upon days, wandering around, and just yeah. That's my kind of place to go. What little things do you miss most that you've lost due to the pandemic? Because of the nature of my job and just the nature of not being a really social person to begin with. Um, It's probably more. Like, because you say little things, because when I go to it, it's more like just I can't think of a little thing. What little thing do you miss least that you've lost during the pandemic? I also can't think of anything. I'm just going to skip over those. What's your relation to small talk? Hate it like acid, love it, or merely competent? Definitely at one point in my life, it would have been hate it like acid, just totally incompetent at it. Um, Now I'm probably just merely competent at it. With old age, you learn the forms and you just kind of okay, you're all right at it. Have you ever won money at gambling? Yeah, like Steve, never particularly been interested in gambling. Also, I probably have a slightly addictive personality in some places in my life, so it's one of those things I've just steered away from. But it also just seems really boring. It just Gambling in itself just seems like one of those things that's just like it luckily it hasn't lit up any of those pleasure receptors in my brain, so I'm thankful for that, especially in this age where you can turn on this bloody thing, this phone, and you could be access to gambling sites. I can't imagine being someone who's addicted to gambling living in a modern age where literally you carry around something in your pocket where you could lose all your life savings pretty easily. um, do you ever give money or time to charities? Yeah, money. Number 17, do you craft? Knitting, crocheting, woodworking, pottery throwing, knitting, and doing glass work. I have knitted in the past, and I have done glass work in the past, where I like, making glass beads, making glass figurines, kind of things like that. Molten glass with a torch. Um, do you talk to yourself when you're alone? Now, I laughed when Steve answered this question because literally, what do you do as somebody who makes these videos? You go into a room all by yourself and you talk to yourself. I'm talking to this. I'm not. You're not here. I'm just talking to myself. I'm recording myself talking to myself. So I have many hours of proof. Steve has thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of proof that he talks to himself all the time. We're just Viewership is just a byproduct of that. Um, Number 19. Are you a social queen bee in college? No. Uh, Number 20. Are you a sunrise person or a sunset person? I work from 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night. So uh, for sunset, I never see it because I'm at work. I'm working. I mean, I'm working in the house. I guess I could look out the window and look at it, but it's sort of it's there. Sunrise, I'm asleep, so I'm neither. I'm I'm a in between, that in between part of the day. I'm a noon part of the day. That's when especially on working days, I get out of the house, I go down to the water, and I have a good swim, and I what I'll do is I'll get, it's good for my exercise, good for getting kind of stretching out my body, which is really important because I'm a support worker and I'm bending and doing all that sort of stuff and on my feet all day. But what I'll do is I'll get out into the gorge, and I'll just stop, and I'll lay back in the water, and I'll look up at the sky, and the water and the clouds and maybe a float plane going overhead, and that's like, yeah, I'm a middle, what between sunrise and sunset, the middle part of the day is where I'm at. So yeah, I'm difficult. I'm difficult about those questions. All right, and those are the 20 random question tag. Thank you, Steve. It was fun to do. Fun for that last question, actually. I didn't know that was going to come up, and it's always fun when things just sort of come up while you're chatting. I tag everybody like Steve tagged everybody. If you want to do it, you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you just don't want to do it. And you can pass on easily. All right, more videos later.